4 years after the real estate market crash and 4 years after stocks topped, it's been a very difficult time for people who are saving for retirement and those who are in it or about to be. Baby boomers are losing their jobs and millennials are having a hard time finding their first ones. This obviously causes major problems in finances. Thankfully, we have people here who can help us out. In the recent Forbes Investment Guide, we had Zach O'Malley Greenberg, Forbes editor, and Deborah Jacobs, who addressed the retirement issue from a couple of sides. Zach from the millennial side, people born from what, 1980 to 95, and Deborah, you're talking about the baby boomers born from 46 to 64. Yes. Let's talk about it in a few ways: jobs, housing, expenses, and planning for the future. Deborah, a lot of boomers, job losses have been pretty heavy. Boomers tend to get paid more, and they're more attractive targets probably when it comes time to cut. That's been the case, right?
The thing with boomers is that boomers grew up with their sense of self-worth very closely connected to their jobs, and they need to keep in mind that even though you lose your job, you never lose your human capital.
Are people who are losing jobs going to, pound the pavement to find a new one, or do you think they're becoming more entrepreneurial?
Those who are more realistic are becoming more entrepreneurial.
Zach, what are younger people doing? Are you finding some entrepreneurial drive out there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's especially hard for young people. Unemployment rate for people aged 20 to 24 is 14%.
It's like double the national average almost, yeah.
Almost, yeah. And so, what I've been finding in reporting the story is that really a lot of people are turning to kind of alternative entrepreneurial ventures, and I think the people who've been able to get ahead, who are millennials, getting ahead in this economy, are kind of doing some unorthodox things. So one of the people I profiled.
There's some cool people in your article.
Yeah. There was a Wharton grad who opened a food truck in Philadelphia. When his start date for a consulting job got pushed back by a year. There was an aspiring actress who was about to give up and go to law school, but she decided that she would try teaching yoga for a little while, and now she's making $60,000 a year with no debt as a yoga teacher. So people who kind of get off of that track but embrace it and find entrepreneurial ways of making some money are, I think, the ones who are doing well.
Both generations grew up in times of relative affluence in this country, both the boomers and the millennials. And so maybe does it come with it? Does it bring with it a sense of optimism or entitlement, or that, hey, it's okay, I am special, I do have wonderful gifts? Because people were kind of coddled in those generations, right?
I think for the boomers, it's led to a sense of this isn't fair, the rules have changed, this is not what I've signed up for, and it's an enormous disappointment. There's a lot of anger. Right. I think it's really important for people to get past that.
Right?
The rules change, and we need to make the most of these years, even though it's not working out exactly how we expected.
I think millennials have been raised to sort of feel unique and special, maybe even if they aren't.
Right, no, but it's good to have optimism at least,
but still,
to believe you can do it.
It fosters this sense of optimism, and maybe I can be, the next Mark Zuckerberg or whoever.
Housing is kind of defined where we are right now, from the boom to the bust that we're now in. What's going on?
The big news is the house is a place to live. Yeah. It's a roof over your head. It's not an investment. It's not something you should buy many of as if you were playing Monopoly. We grew up playing Monopoly, right? We acquired real estate and we sold it at a profit. Yeah, right. Can't do that anymore. And housing is a fixed cost at a time when what we earn is shrinking. So the more we can bring down our housing costs by owning less property, owning less expensive properties, properties with fewer fixed costs in the form of real estate taxes, we're much better off.
I think for millennials, the rule is, you really don't want to tie yourself down to a house. Even if you're in a market where it might be advisable to buy instead of rent.
Looks dirt cheap, right?
Yeah, you kind of don't want to lock yourself into that in case you want to start an entrepreneurial venture somewhere else, or you want to take another job somewhere. Even if it's a good investment, kind of looking 10, 15 years down the road, if you have to sell early and move, to take another job, you might be taking a bath on your house, and kind of a way that you hadn't been expecting. I think in some ways it's kind of become the default. You graduate college, you move back home, look for a job. I mean, I don't necessarily advocate that. I think you should really be looking for a job, starting the beginning of your senior year of college. If you don't find one, maybe move home for a little while until you can get a job, but then get out of there. Your parents don't want you around. And
so How do you go about tracking expenses from the perspective of boomers? How do you keep a handle on those
incredibly, very few people really know what they spend. So if you haven't been keeping track using a software like Quicken, the best thing to do is to figure out what you take out of the ATM every week, multiply it by 52, add to that the big ticket items, the big checks that you write every month, and that'll give you a pretty rough idea. And then start thinking about, how can I take a less amount out of an ATM each week?
I think a kind of interesting natural control on your spending, and also a way to cut down on costs, is living with roommates. You know, personally, I've never lived alone. You know, I lived with my parents. I went to college. I had roommates in college. I had roommates as soon as I got out of college. I live with my girlfriend now. You know, so sharing expenses is kind of a natural cost control, because you know, if you're going out and buying all these extravagant things, your roommates are going to say, "Hey, man, you know, we don't want to be splitting that with you." A lot of us, you know, don't really realize we're not going to have our parents' retirement. There's not going to be a pension. They may not even be Social Security left over by the time we're done. So you know, it really needs to be a kind of make it yourself, do it yourself retirement kind of thing. You know, a lot of people in my generation are afraid of the stock market. You know, they're angry, and I mean, and
that could be a good sign that it's time to buy, I guess.
Yeah, you know. But I mean, I think the bottom line is, don't be afraid of the stock market. We have many decades, you know, to make make that money back. And you know, I mean, I think that the first and most important thing is, you know, if you have any credit card debt, high interest debt, you know, pay that down as soon as possible.
Guaranteed return of whatever your interest rate is on the card.
You know, that's better than risking it on the market. But once you pay down your debts and you got some money, make sure you're investing in any company 401k, at least up to the employer match.
The key thing is to eliminate the financial concerns that keep you awake at night, and then live within your means. I mean, one thing that I really encourage people to do, and it sounds nuts, is to pay off your mortgage if you possibly can. Put aside a fund to cover rainy day expenses. Some say 6 months, I say even longer worth of expenses. And then if you have cash that you're wondering what to do with it, throw it against your mortgage if you still have a mortgage, because any money you put towards paying off the mortgage is a guaranteed return.
Check it all out. It's definitely a changed economy out there. Don't go out unprotected. Check out Zach and Deborah in the Investment Guide.